Why did God put the tree in the Garden of Eden? It is a simple question, but the implications are serious. If God knew what would happen, why place a tree that could lead to humanity's fall right in the middle of the garden? Was it a test, a trap, or something deeper? Before we go further, if you enjoy thoughtful and honest explorations like this, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find these discussions and keeps this series going. Now let us think carefully. In Genesis, we are told that God created a perfect environment. The garden was good. Everything in it was good. And in that garden, God placed two specific trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God gave a command. You may eat from every tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will surely die. That raises the central question. If everything was good, why include something that could bring death? Some people argue that the tree should not have been there at all. If it was removed, then Adam and Eve would never have fallen. But that way of thinking assumes something important. It assumes that a world without choice is better than a world with choice. Because without the tree, there is no real decision to make. There is no real obedience. And there is no real relationship. Think about it this way. If someone is forced to choose you, is that love? Or is love only meaningful when there is a real option to walk away? The presence of the tree introduces something critical into the story. Freedom. Not just the freedom to exist, but the freedom to choose. And choice always carries risk. Now, notice something else. God did not hide the command. He made it clear. Adam and Eve were not ignorant. They were not tricked into eating from the tree without knowledge. They were given a clear boundary, and boundaries define relationships. The question then becomes, what did the tree represent? It was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That phrase is important. Before eating from it, humanity lived in a state of innocence. After eating, they gained a new kind of awareness, not just knowledge in an intellectual sense, but an experiential understanding of good and evil. In other words, they stepped into moral independence. Instead of trusting God to define what is good and what is evil, they took that authority into their own hands. And that is where things begin to shift. Now, some might ask, why would God even allow that possibility? Why allow humans to step into a position that would lead to suffering? To answer that, we need to consider the nature of obedience. Obedience that is forced is not obedience. It is control. Real obedience only exists when disobedience is possible. The tree made obedience meaningful. Without it, Adam and Eve would simply be following a program, not making a decision. But with it, their choice carried weight. Their yes or no actually mattered. Now here is where the story becomes more complex. The serpent enters. The question is no longer just about the tree. It becomes about trust. The serpent challenges God's word. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? That question introduces doubt. Then comes the contradiction. You will not surely die. And finally, the temptation. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. Notice the shift. The temptation is not just about eating fruit. It is about becoming like God on their own terms. It is about autonomy, defining reality for themselves instead of trusting the one who created them. That is why the tree matters. It represents a choice between trust and self-determination. Now think about this carefully. If God never placed the tree in the garden, there would be no opportunity for humanity to choose trust over independence. And without that choice, the relationship between God and humanity would lack depth. It would lack meaning. At this point, you might be thinking, but was the outcome inevitable? Did God place the tree knowing they would fail? That is a deeper question about foreknowledge and free will. The text does not present Adam and Eve as forced into failure. It presents them as choosing, and that choice had consequences. When they eat from the tree, their eyes are opened. But instead of becoming like God in a divine sense, they become aware of their vulnerability. They feel shame. They hide. The relationship is broken. And the world changes. Now pause for a moment. If you are finding this thought-provoking, take a second to like this video, comment your perspective, and subscribe. It helps this kind of content reach more people who are asking the same questions. Now let us go deeper. Some interpretations suggest that the tree was never the problem. The issue was not the existence of the tree, but the decision to distrust God. The tree simply revealed what was already possible within human freedom. Others see the tree as a necessary part of growth, a step in humanity's journey from innocence to moral awareness. But regardless of interpretation, one thing is clear. The tree was not placed there randomly. It served a purpose within the story. It introduced choice, responsibility, and consequence. It turned a perfect environment into a meaningful relationship space. Now bring this to a personal level. The question is no longer just about Adam and Eve. It becomes about us. Every day, we face choices that reflect the same pattern: trust or independence, obedience or self-direction. The story of the garden is not just history. It is a mirror. So why did God put the tree in the garden? Because without it, there is no real choice. Without choice, there is no real obedience. And without that, there is no real relationship. The tree made love possible, but it also made rejection possible. And that tension is at the heart of the story. Now the question shifts from the past to the present. What do we do with that same freedom today? Do we trust, or do we define things for ourselves? That is the question the story leaves with us. Think about it carefully.